Welcome, everyone, or welcome back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. I was my mother's caregiver when she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started TogetherForSharon.com in her memory. Today's guest is, I'd say, the summary of today's kindest person I know, but also I think one of the most inspirational. Just thinking about her, and I was so excited I asked her to come on a little early, probably driving her crazy, but it's because I was so excited to have the opportunity to have Keri on the show. I just wanted to tell you how you really moved my life and so many others. And today the show is not just about awareness, but also about you, because you inspire me in these tough days that I go through, whether with awareness or not, when I kind of feel like got to give up or take a break. And then I see your work and I say, nope, Keri's fighting. I'm going to fight right by her side. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, George. I'm honored to be here. I've seen the crew of people you've had, and so I feel like now I'm one of those people. So thanks for sharing this time with me.
No, I appreciate it. And it's just so excited to have you. All you do, from, the documentary I watched to the social media, how we met, and also to the being a rad human being, which I think is cool that we can still say that. Everything else seems to be banned or you're not allowed, but we can still love each other. So that's what we'll try and do. Maybe we could start by telling us a little bit, about your journey and how you got into awareness, because there's a difference in, like, my mother. She had a tough struggle, a lot of it. She felt alone, and I felt alone as caregiver, but she would never have been an advocate because she was, I don't know, it's just different. She taught me never to give up, and I'm advocating in her memory. But it takes a certain special something to kind of stand up like Mr. Michael J. Fox did when he could have led a private life. So maybe, again, we can start by just getting to know you a little, and then, how did you come to the world of advocacy?
Kind of accidentally, as you know from talking to all of the people with Parkinson's and being the caregiver for your mom, no one wants to stumble upon the diagnosis of Parkinson's. I When I got diagnosed, I was diagnosed almost 4 years ago. I didn't know what to do with the information because I actually felt ashamed. It's an interesting feeling I had when I look back on it now, that I felt like maybe I'd done something wrong. I was kind of embarrassed because I felt like I had this disease that was somehow saved for these older people. And I was physically fit. I was in the prime of my life, like many of us unfortunately are. And so to get all of a sudden this diagnosis, that kind of people are like, well, how did you get that? Why do you have that? And I know I didn't do anything to get it. So it wasn't like the shame, but I just felt like embarrassed, really. And so how I usually deal with embarrassment is instead of having a white elephant in the room, I say something, right? And so as soon as I got diagnosed, I went on a podcast with a friend of mine who I used to race athletic events with, to kind of try to explain it, because I didn't want chatter, not that people are talking about me, but I didn't want my running groups to start being like, what happened to Keri? And I didn't want misinformation out there. So I decided I would just start yelling it from the rooftop, because I found that it helped me when I spoke about it, because it kind of put me in a third person. So maybe I was a little bit using a numbing mechanism a little bit to talk more about uh, the nuances of it and the disease versus the holy crap, I have it, what am I going to do, emotional side of things. So I actually found some people on Instagram, and it's been a really fast but short almost 4 years, because when I was newly diagnosed there wasn't a lot on Instagram. And so maybe your mom would have been an advocate had she been diagnosed when there was a lot more chatter out there, and almost normalcy, right? Like, I found the goat, Heather Kennedy, who you just recently spoke to. And like, I made her be my friend because she had done all of these, I call them the Saturday Night Live skits of Parkinson's. And she was like my person that I thought, okay, here's someone who's been dealing with Parkinson's and she looks like she's doing okay. And I needed to have that. And so I reached out to her, and she was like, I'm just, going through a hard time. Her health had started to take a turn. She just had DBS. And I'm like, no, you have room for one more friend. I need you as my friend right now. And she's a tough nut. Like she's the most loving person, but she's a tough cookie sometimes because she just tells you how she feels. And I said, I'm coming to see you. I want to come see you. So I literally got on a plane, a couple weeks after like contacting her, stayed with her at her house. And again, she had just had DBS. And so I didn't really know what I was in for. But what I found is if I find people that are going through similar things, it helps me. And so that's how I kind of became an accidental advocate. Like I want to say I'm a passive advocate because I'm just living my life and I'm not doing a whole lot with the intention of an end goal in mind. I'm kind of just almost with my social media. I bring in my kids. It's not all just Parkinson's because that's not my life. And I don't want it to just be my life, but I want to sprinkle in, hey, I do have Parkinson's. I'm still doing this or I'm not doing this. And I just want it to kind of be visible for other people because I think with any diagnosis given, we can become that diagnosis. And when we do that mentally, we close off a lot of doors that could be open or opportunities or a life that we really could be walking into that we're not because we are just doom and gloom. So, I think, yeah, I think the advocacy just came because I actually needed an outlet and I needed a community and building the community through social media, um, and, texting, phone calls, Zooms has supported me 100%.
I'm amazed that in such a short time you've reached so many and done so many really extraordinary things. So thank you again for that. One other area which is really fascinating, maybe you could touch on your past work in the pharmaceutical world. We could probably have a show just on that topic. I'm actually writing a little blog about it because there's so many out there. And I always joke that we'll have a table at the American Parkinson's Walk or the Parkinson's Foundation. And I'm just there to talk about my mother and hug people, and then there's two pharmaceutical companies on each side. So they're actually people like timid and don't want to come up to me because they think we're going to sell something. And even some of the farm, I love farm everybody, but some of them too, I try to talk to and they're like, don't talk. So it's really, it's just an interesting world of pharmaceutical that I love to dive into in the future. But maybe you could touch on, your career in that field and even now, I don't know if you dealt with, Parkinson's in that area, but that's just fascinating to me. No one on the show has come from that background.
Yeah, no, I always knew I wanted to do something medical through college. And I think I was in, um, going down the route of pharmacology, then nutrition, and it was organic chem that took me out of all of it. And then I went into nursing and I was going through the nursing program and I realized I'm not a very good like caregiver. I'm very loving, but I'm very like hard love. And it's kind of like, even with my kids, like, well, if the fever's not 105, we're going to be okay. Go to school kind of thing. So I realized quickly that the caregiving approach wasn't for me. And we were having pharmaceutical sales reps coming in when I was working in a rotation. And I was like, what do I need to do to be that? And so when I graduated, I went right into pharmaceuticals. And so that's been 20 plus years. And I've done quite a few different drugs and disease categories. And, I think pharma gets a bad rap and there's good and bad in everything, right? At the end of the day, we need drugs. And so, pharma is always going to be around. We need research and development. From my side of things as a pharmaceutical rep, especially being interested in the disease state and actually being able to do deep dives with, my doctors that I call on, because I really have to understand what's going on. It's not just a verbatim of what our medication does, but you have to be ready to be able to talk to a doctor about, patient A has these problems. They can come to you and you can be a consultant. And so I did feel like I was adding value because there's so much new information. As you know, there's a new drug released all the time, and then when there's a new drug, there's a me too drug that's similar, but there's different side effects or different contraindications. Doctors don't have the time to keep abreast of all of these new drugs and who that drug should be for versus a drug that might be better for another patient. And so we're kind of little like I like to call them closet gems because we are in the closet a lot because we're standing there in the sample closet waiting for the doctor to come in and give us some time and, decide if they want some samples or not. But we can give them the information that they might not get because they can't read all JAMA. They can't read like PubMed all the time. So we're there basically to consult. And so I felt a lot of passion in my job, but with any job, there's stuff that you don't like, and there's just back end stuff that you don't like, and there's corporation stuff that you have to do or can't do, and guardrails. It's heavily governed, and so there's things you just can't say, which I think is fair because it has to be fair and balanced because you don't want to be saying things that are what you think versus what's proven. So it's turned it's changed a lot in 20 years. When I first started, we were out there willy-nilly and taking doctors to a lot of different events and stuff. And then there was a thing called the Sunshine Act that came in that really said, no, like you can't be, taking doctors to plays or golfing or not. And if you do, we have to have that reported as a value that's given to that doctor. And so it's a good consumer protection because if a doctor's writing, say, for example, one in particular drug, and that's the only drug that they're writing for, the one disease, but there's multiple options. And you look at the Sunshine Act and you see that that doctor's received, 20K in different kinds of gifts, there should be an investigation. So it's a governing system, and I think that that's fair. And actually it gave me back my weekends because I didn't have to worry about, if my competitor was doing something, I kind of had to do it too, right? And so I didn't have to worry about going outside and doing things outside of, my day hours. So I appreciated that. And it's changed. I mean, through the years, the harder part of it is that you are a road warrior. You are in your car. Your office is your car. You're driving from office to office and you're doing your notes in your car. You're walking into the office. You're waiting a lot because, as you know, when you have a doctor's appointment, they have to get through all their patients and they're never, on schedule. So there's a lot of hurry up and wait. So you get very good at being very efficient with your time, because then by the time you get home, you might have seen, a handful of doctors. You might have moved the needle a little bit. You might not, it's not like a hard sell. You're just trying to give them the information. So you don't see immediate results. And it's kind of a long-term thing where you're offering the information, and when they need that information is when they're like, you said this about this one particular product that you talked about. Would it be good for a patient that is dealing with that? And that's when you know that you've moved the needle, because when they remember something and then they come to you and ask you, hey, is that, you're like, okay, they were listening. Because I will say, George, there's a lot of like sample closets I've stood in, and I look at the doctor and I'm talking to them and their eyes are glassed over. I'm like, I've lost them. Like, I know they're not listening. They're thinking about the patient that they need to be going to see. And, and you have to be cognizant of that, because for every time they stop to talk to a rep, they're not in their waiting, or they're not in their patient's room seeing their patients. That's their job, right? So yeah, we're giving them bites of information, but we got to give them something that gives them value, because we're taking time away. And if they have 5 to 10 reps in a day, even do the math on 5 minutes per rep, which is actually a lot of time. That's a lot of time. That's, a patient and a half, if not more.
I find it fascinating because that's the only career I didn't go into. I went to law and police and PhD, but my father's an MD in New York. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm in Florida now, but I wasn't good at science, and it's funny. I can see people's blood, but I don't want to see my own. So that's the one field I wish I might have. I would have went into actually Parkinson's movement, and I would have probably been a little bit more depressing because I want to cure now, and I don't. It's not easy to work there in the medical and research, and your whole life that's what you're doing, and you can't bring home the answer yet, and that's probably very frustrating. So thank you. One thing I do want to say is how much I really appreciate your honesty. I want to share and also, I don't know who runs it anymore, but I want to thank whoever runs Instagram, because we wouldn't have met, and I consider you family, because we're all family, I think, or I feel strongly that we need to be
Yeah.
in this fight for a cure. It only brings us closer. Plus, we reach so many more individuals. Hopefully today I always say if we just reach one person out there who might be a female, might be a single mother, which we'll touch on, who feels alone, and then they see this, I mean, it's almost like I'm in shock that that's incredible. We've just, done something. We've sent a kind bomb in that way. So I just wanted to move a little to social media. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, how people can reach you, and also some of the tougher topics. I know you said you also share your family and some of your past history, which I'll let you address. As a police officer and a lawyer, worked at the prosecutor's office and as defense, so I've seen a lot of important issues, but I always believe that there's always, second chances for individuals. I'm actually currently a professor, but I teach at one school and the students are actually in prison. And it's really amazing because even though some of the toughest times in a person's life, you give them an opportunity, they can really change for the future for the better. So again, I want to talk more about you than hear me. So maybe we could talk a little bit about this beautiful page. And I'm grateful for my forever for it, because again, for you, but for responding. But if it wasn't for this, I don't know if we would have met, and I would have. And I always, lastly, the only journey that breaks my heart today is the one I'm not aware of, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because I don't think I've seen my Instagram up on a computer screen because everything I do is on my phone. I'm like, oh, it actually looks okay.
Wait till we get to I like to play videos while you're talking, so you get to see yourself talking, but you don't hear. So I try to do something a little different here. But maybe you could tell I do this alone. I'm sure a lot of days you're doing it alone. What kind of inspires you? Who's a little person on your shoulder that you talk to kind of get new innovative ideas?
I honestly, I am pretty organic with it. I don't know if it's Parkinson's, but my executive functioning is sucky. And so I don't plan. And I never know when I'm gonna post anything. It's kind of when I feel moved to post something. Because again, I like to put in my kids, I like to put in just some Parkinson's stuff. Definitely when I see something in the Parkinson's community, like currently the Carl Beach bands, right? Like, and there's no paid, sponsorship here or anything. It's such a cool find that he found, the tapping and how it can help Parkinson's and other diseases and conditions. But when I see something that I'm like, wow, I want everyone to see this, because I do believe power is knowledge. And thank goodness for social media, because it's connected all of us. And we would be all isolated, I think, in a very big way, especially with young onset, because we just didn't know who else was out there. So I post whatever really comes to my mind. I don't put much thought into it. The things that really move me are 100% my two daughters. And I mean, I'll just cry talking about them right now, because, um, we've, uh, they've grown me up a lot. I don't know if mothering was the natural um process for me, but man, when I held those two babies as babies, I knew there was nothing more I could love or deeper that I could adore in my life. And so, I also want them to see Parkinson's, because they see me as a mom, and we don't talk about it much because it's not something that it just doesn't really come up in our conversations. And so I feel like this is a way that I can let them see a part of me that isn't part of the dinner conversation. And if they want to see it, they can, or, if they want to watch it 5 times or one time or never, it's up to them. So it's a platform also for them. And I want them to be able to have access, to seeing the things that I also feel is important, because as Parkinson's progresses, as you know, George, as a caregiver, it affects everybody. And that, I will never, ever deny that that's what breaks my heart every day about this disease, is that it's going to affect them, probably in much more intense ways than me, because my feeling is that, I know Parkinson's, I know that we can live a good life with it, but I also know that things get hard. And, as you scroll to the Michael J. Fox picture, like, it's hard for him, and it doesn't matter how much money or notoriety he has. It's hard for him. And I'm probably not going to be, an outlier. And so I want my kids to be able to, have some way to get through it. And if that's them finding a community, because I do feel like we learn from watching people. And so to me, it's like, if they see what I'm doing by reaching out to other people, maybe it plants the seed for them that when they feel like they need it, they can find their community of kids, of parents with Parkinson's or whatever it might be. So, I wish I had a really great answer that came from a deep place in my heart, but it's just pretty organic that I selfishly needed to be involved in a community. And in order to do so, I had to put myself out there and be willing to be vulnerable and authentic with others for others to be able to feel that, to give back to me that way and to give to the community.
Well, thank you for that, and we send our love to the whole family and you, because I know that this doesn't just affect you, it also affects the family and the community around you. And like I said, we'll always be right by your side until there's a cure at your doorstep. So thank you. I
And
also wanted to, this is an incredible by Parkinson's Disease Wise, which is Dr. Cole. And I hope someday to be able opportunity to speak to him. We have been talking a little, but I think it's great to show these types of real, reality, not to kind of jazz it up with all the celebrity movie type things, but just real people, real talk. So everyone, please first go to Keri's Instagram, go to Keri Shaw _ and support her, follow her. I do. I'm always excited seeing everything that you do. And you can also watch this through Parkinson's Disease Wise. I subscribed, and I love the ability to do that while we're on. So, and maybe you could touch just for a moment about this, and also then I want to get into a little bit more fun and this incredible things you're doing. Unfortunately, mine hasn't arrived because I was going to throw it. Oh, I was
oh
going to,
no,
I
I
was going
should
to
have
use it.
tracked it.
I was going to use it on our show, but I'll still do a little video and help promote it. But maybe you could touch on this, and then after that, we'll switch over to the Kleinbaum world.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about Dr. Alan Cole. I mean, and I've never actually called him Dr. Alan Cole, but you're right, he has a PhD. He was director of social work at University of Texas, so he is a pretty important job and well known. But I didn't know who he was until I got diagnosed, and um, I don't even remember who it was, but they said, "Oh, you need to get, introduced to Alan Cole." And his wife is a runner with one of the groups that's I'm familiar with here in Austin. And so I felt like I should have already known him. And anyway, my first, conversation with him, he was one of the he and Brian Grant were one of the very first few people that I had reached out to. And Alan has just this way about him, and it could be why he's so good in what he does. But he's got a few years on me as far as having Parkinson's. And so I think I like to always kind of watch people that are ahead of me, in that sort of age of when they were diagnosed, because I like to see what's going on and what they've been through. And Alan just said, "You're going to be okay, Keri." And there's something about when Alan says that. To this day, I can text him, too, George, like there's days that you're just like, I don't want to do this. I'm done. I'm fed up. I'm frustrated. I'm sad, all of the feelings. And I'll text him, and he always just sends me back a text of, "You're going to be okay," or, "You're going to be just fine." And that's all I need from Alan Cole, because I just trust him. And whatever that okay might look like, it's still going to be my okay. So I was honored when Vanessa Reiser had asked if I wanted to be in this documentary. And it really is just about young onset Parkinson's. She had worked previously with Alan Cole on another Parkinson's movie that wasn't focused on young set. And then she decided between her and Alan that they wanted to feature something more specific to young onset. And I was ecstatic because, again, it was early on in my diagnosis. And I thought, this is what we need out there. We need to let people know, not to scare them, but let them know that we're here and it's happening. And statistic wise, we know it's not stopping anytime soon. And the ages, unfortunately, are getting younger. And, that could be a whole nother podcast, but to be a part of something, again, all of the things inhibitions I might have had about being on camera or having a documentary done, it completely disappeared when I knew that this was just getting the message out that, this disease is not this older person's disease. And being in pharma, I saw that all the time, that again, and I don't blame the doctors. They go to school, they come out of school, and they have a ton of things in just their day job to keep up on. And no one was telling them that this was something that could happen. And to get triaged to a neurologist and then a neurologist to a movement disorder specialist, it's hard in the system because when we're young, that's not what they're looking at. I mean, of course, I think they ruled out MS, ALS, all of the other yucky, conditions. And Parkinson's was never even on the docket. We found it out by basically an accident test for a skin biopsy. So, and then it was deductive theory of, well, you have the misfolded alpha synuclein and it's going to be one of 5 pretty nasty conditions. And at this point, you hope it's Parkinson's because the other ones that it could be, you definitely don't want. So again, I was jumping at the chance to be in this. It's hard watching, I'm watching your screen. It's hard watching yourself on camera, but again, it's like, it's for the greater good, because I think we did manage to get our message out there. And, subsequently I've seen quite a few other documentaries pop up and I love it. Like, it's not a competition. It's nothing. It's like, we need our voices heard because the more we're heard, the more research development goes into it. The more society accepts us because it's hard being young and having this disease that people are like, are they tremoring? What, they don't fit that profile of someone with Parkinson's. So they wonder what it is that we're doing, when we're doing our wonky stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And so everyone, again, please go to YouTube. You can type in Keri Shaw the Future and you'll see that documentary and so much more. And then I wanted to shift to a little bit of smiling and fun because it's not always easy. But I did want to also mention about your running. We would do, my wife and I, 8 million 5Ks for all charities. And then unfortunately woke up at 42 and I couldn't leave the bed due to back pain and nothing happened. Just don't know what happened. And then had 4 surgeries and 47 now and can't really
Wow.
run anymore, which is kind of heartbreaking because as you know, and we can talk in the future, it's not even just the running, it's almost like your mental health that you get that feeling. I don't do drugs and things but that's like a drug for me. And
Yeah.
without it, it's tough. Like even sitting here, I'm thinking about working out after we're done and I want to because I've been working since 5 a.m., but it's like I don't know if I'll physically be able to, which is tough. And the one thing with Parkinson's, I talked the other day on a show, people see us and we look young and we look great. I guess you look beautiful, but they don't know the inside or what you're really feeling. That's why I think your talks and all your advocacy and even the show that's bringing to the light and trying to pull in, like, I'm not a good fisher because I get seasick, but I want to, fish and pull in everyone who doesn't have Parkinson's and people who are not affected because that's the only way I feel we'll come closer to a cure by getting everyone throughout the world. So thanks again for all that you do. And then this is a fun topic. And again, I wish I had one here to throw up in the air and start I'll be doing a video for
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check on that tracking because it should have
sure.
been there. So I'm sorry. But yeah, so cotton bomb, it really like it came out of desperation. So some of the best things have happened to me in my life after being at a place where I didn't want to get any lower, so I had to figure out how to climb out of it. And so with Kind Bomb, I've been running around. We call it Town Lake here in Austin, and it's a loop. So you can do a 3-mile loop, 5-mile loop, 7-mile loop, or 10-mile loop, and it's where all the community gathers. And so no matter what time of day I go out there or went out there, I would see people that I had recognized for the 20 plus years that I've been doing it. And I always found that if I smiled at someone that was coming towards me and they smiled back, or they just kind of like recognized that I smiled, I always felt better. Like it just was like, I don't know, like letting someone know they're seen. Or on the flip side, if I was, huffing and puffing my way around, or even at the grocery store kicking cans because I'm having like a bad day or a temper tantrum over something, if someone said something to me or complimented me or just stopped to recognize that they see me in that moment, it would change my entire day just from one stranger's, half a second blip in my day. And so I was like, why not actually give something to someone? So It is a tactile passing. You have to stop, give it to them. And so it's very simple. It's basically tokens of appreciation, and there's wooden tokens and there's pewter tokens, and they have kind of sassy sayings. It's not real mushy, but it's like, even, I mean, one's thank you, but you're at the grocery store, the coffee store, and you give one to someone and they take it and they look at it and they're kind of like, oh wow, that's cool, because they're realizing, like, you're saying something kind of nice to them. You're not asking them to buy something. You're just recognizing them. Like, I have Mama Strong, and I always carry them with me. And whenever I see a mom, trying to get her kids out of the car and the car seat and the strollers, I always walk up. I'm like, you're doing a great job. And then sometimes it starts a conversation. Sometimes, that's all it is that transaction of me handing something. But I know as I walk away, that I've done something, and hopefully that person has had, a change in their mood, or they recognize it when they go to bed that night, like, wow, someone actually saw that I was like doing the hard stuff out there. So I just do it more out of the kindness, for, again, more, it helps me feel good. And then the intention, like, I don't know if I've told you this, but for a while after being diagnosed, it was terrible in the morning. I'd wake up and I would before I fully opened my eyes, I would have that feeling of like, oh, despair wash over me, of kind of like, what is it that I feel so terrible? It reminded me of before I was in recovery, of my drinking days. Like, oh, who did I text last night? It's kind of like that, what's wrong? Because something's wrong, but I don't know. And then immediately it would come to me like, oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And it would cause like it would cause me to have like a visceral, almost dry heat. Well, it was dry heaving, to be very clear. And finally, one day, I realized I can't keep waking up like this, because it is taking everything out of me. And I have to figure out if I'm going to be okay with this. And when I say okay, I think I mean acceptance. Like, again, as Michael J. Fox would say, you can accept something without agreeing with it or liking it. But to get into that place, and I go in and out of it, right? Like, I'm not going to lie. There's days that I'm like, oh, heck no, I do not want this. And, I think comes with the territory of more time. There's more days now that I'm like, it's just more like, I have it, like, and I'm not in denial, but I'm in acceptance. I don't like it, but I figured, and I learned this I'm in AA, and I learned in recovery the power of gratitude. And one of the things I do still, mostly today, I'm not as good as I was when I first was getting sober, but to write a gratitude list. And I had to share my gratitudes, 10 gratitudes minimum, with another person in the program. And I realized, at first I'm kind of like, I don't want to do this, but I realized that in the morning, if I was able to kind of change my brain from the, oh my goodness, I have this and this and this to do, to, wow, I really am grateful for my coffee. And I will tell you, coffee was on my gratitude list a lot. I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful for, that I have a car to take my kids to school. And it just makes you start to think of the things that we take for granted, or that I take for granted a lot, little things. And so Kind Bomb was kind of a gratitude list, because I stick, a Kind Bomb in my pocket whenever I'm out and about. And I'm literally having the intention of looking for someone that I can either recognize for being awesome, for being sad, for having a hard time, or for just showing up as a human being. And so it actually helps me look for the good in other things and people. And so again, it's a way to kind of trick my mind into staying alert, looking at other people, because I think a lot of times when we're dealing with yucky, crappy things, we can get stuck in our own heads, right? And it's not always a pity party, but I know I ruminate on things. But as soon as I go and do service for other people, if that just even means recognizing them with a Kind Bomb, or, saying something nice to them without a Kind Bomb, it gets me out of my own crap. And I always feel better, even if it's for 10 seconds. I always feel better. And so I just felt like, this is a way that I can continue to look for the good in things, and try to keep my headspace out of the negative, because by default I'm a pretty negative Nelly, and I go there, and I wanted to have a built-in system for myself.
Well, the kindness and all these types of things really can be infectious for a good reason. And when you do that and spread it. There's a famous saying, I teach, I'm a professor, and I always tell my students, if you're positive, it'll, spread. But there's always a little story where, one person went to have breakfast at one of those, in New York, there were like everywhere, the little diners. And, the person was very nice to the waitress. Well, in turn, the waitress was nice to the next client, and then and it just kind of shares and spreads. I almost feel like we should put the kind bomb like a tattoo on our head, just be kind to others. And it's just incredible, even down to this horrible thing like a war could be settled, I believe, if we were all just kind of a little bit more kind. But I won't use the word bomb with war because we don't want to get into all that stuff. Maybe
Well,
I'll.
100%. It's a pay it forward, right? And you're right. Like it's karma and it's a pay it forward and it's an energy that we're putting on other people. And if someone made you feel good, you're more likely to make someone else feel good. So I think we, when we tap into it, and it's hard because things in the day get hard, right? For everyone with or without Parkinson's or as a caregiver or not. And I promise if you are in a stuck hard place, you do something that is nice for someone else, it will change. It will change your feeling.
Well, everyone, please go to kindbomb.com. That's probably one of the most easy to remember out of the thousands I've tried to share, but thank you for sharing that. And now we get to a little bit fun stuff, although that was pretty much fun for me. We're running low on time, so I have so many questions, so we'll see. We'll call this the speed round. You ready? Can you list
Shoot.
three, can you list three words that describe who you are?
Ooh, energetic, introvert, and passionate.
Thanks. And what about one moment or one most memorable moment that stand out through all of your work so far with awareness that you can share?
I think just putting myself out on Instagram, honestly, because then people can look and they don't need to. But like you said earlier on in the podcast, if it's just one person that gets something from it, that's great. And I am a pretty private person. I'm happy sharing things with people, but I'm a one-on-one person. If I'm in a group, I don't talk much, but I can go, into great deep conversation with someone one to one. So for me, it is a stretch to kind of air my dirty laundry, good and bad. But again, I know that it's helping me and it's helping someone.
Thanks. And you mentioned your children, so this I usually answer these before I ask, but I have a two-part question, so we'll get complicated. First, I try to bring out the individuals behind the scenes who don't really kind of show themselves, but we owe or I owe so much gratitude toward to support you. So who helped you during times of struggle? And also, I was a caregiver. What tips could you give those caregivers who might be listening today?
I have different communities, and it's interesting. I think of them as buckets. My kids absolutely motivate me, right? Because I'm like, they're gonna have to watch me fight this, and I want them to see that it's fightable. And yeah, I don't mean to say like unrealistic. We're gonna cure it, and mom's gonna be fine. It's just I want them to understand like that. Every day that I go and I have to work out, I'm doing it because I'm fighting this disease, and I don't see it as an option. And I think that for them, they motivate me because I want to be as good as I can for them. The people I get support from, again, come from all different buckets because I have my recovery support group, which I think is just an amazing way of life. And I'm super grateful that I found recovery because my life has been so much better. Just learning how to live. I missed the memo when I was growing up of how to deal with a lot of things, and I stuffed them in alcohol. And so I have my recovery community and we speak the same speak. And a lot of things in Parkinson's, not the disease itself, but the feelings that come with having something that's a chronic progressive disease, because they're both chronic progressive diseases. There's a lot of understanding without having to actually do apples to apples with alcoholism or Parkinson's. So I've learned how to deal with Parkinson's, I think, because I got sober first and I had to learn how to live sober. Um, so they're a group, and then my athletic group, my community. I used to be a runner every morning at 5:30 in the morning. I'd meet the same group for years and we would hash out our miles, you know, verbally vomit all of our, information and go on with our day. And I don't run like that anymore. So I've had to find different groups, and I have, and they're important to me. And then, my friends and my community and my really close friends are my close friends. They're my ride or dies. And um I'll go to them with different needs, or they can usually anticipate. I think I posted, this is funny. I posted a picture on my Instagram about me holding a dog, and
Mhm.
my best friend called me and she's like, we got to go meet for a walk. And I met her for a walk. She's like, I saw you post a picture with a dog, and I have a dog. I love my dog, but I'm not a real dog person. She goes, I know something's wrong. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm kind of spinning out of control. I feel like whatever was going on at that time. I said, you're right. And she goes, yeah, when you post a picture about a cute dog, she's like, I could see that something was wrong with you. And I didn't even know. But when she called me out on it, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm spinning out right now. So I think it's the people I get. Again, I said I'm a one-on-one person. I don't have a lot of really close friends, but the friends I have, they know me very well. And then the people that I use as sort of my morning workout people, or my afternoon workout people, that we hold each other accountable because we're showing up and we share that hour together. And so I find my different buckets for different needs.
Thank you. And then, unfortunately, I have so many more questions each time you tell me some other stories because I wanted to hear about progression and exercise and other. Just maybe in the future we'll meet. I hope again. I always do say, everyone listening, share this. This is not a conversation that should end today. It has to be one that's continually discussed, shared, and really followed up. Because until we find a cure, we need to continue to, fight for this. And awareness changes the world for so many. And ironically, I've had about, it wasn't planned this way, but about seven now incredible, strong women, female warriors on, and we talked about some incredible female issues, which I didn't think I can even sit to understand, but I have, and I think that helps because it shows men can, wake up and get up and do something. And like you said, it's not an elderly man disease; it's more young Americans, young professionals around the world. World Carl Beach is a like little brother of mine. We
Mhm.
texted him just the other night, and he's doing and you so many incredible things. But to wrap up, if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Say, like, get your community and be involved as much as you need with other people with Parkinson's. I know when I first went on a Zoom meeting, it was with a group of people that were really far along, and it scared me. And I hear that quite often with young onset, but find people that you have something in common with. Like, I have a group of ladies that it's not just Parkinson's that we have in common that helps, but there's a lot of other things that parallel each other's lives. So we can talk about things other than just Parkinson's, but we also share that nonverbal understanding that we're really going through something together. So that helps. It's kind of like knowing you have a buddy that's just there and they just get you. Um, Isolation is, I think, the easiest thing for us to do, but the hardest thing on us. And so be involved. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and be a, hard hitting advocate or anything. It just means find someone or some community that you can associate with your Parkinson's.
I just want to thank you for your time, your friendship, and I'm so excited for the future, and always advocating by your side. The things you're doing, I think, are changing the world and gaining, even more important, a few smiles along the way. Just the background behind you, I can't stop looking at the beautiful hearts. So
Oh, yeah, so I've started
I
painting.
love it.
That's
I
what
love
happens
it.
with Parkinson's too. Well, and I guess
That's
non-Parkinson's.
not the,
We all get creative at some point.
yeah, but you're all good at it. I'm not. I can draw a good stick figure.
Well,
I
maybe
just,
we need to have a Zoom painting lesson, because
I
I
would
don't have any rules. I sling paint and wear
love
move it
that.
around.
I
But
love it. We even started as part of Together for Sharon. If you go in, I think it's just getting too big for me, but it's a section under, I think, maybe it's anyway, it's like partnerships. But I decided to put a list about 30 or more artists who lost their careers due to Parkinson's, and now they do art. And I kind of just, I don't want anything to do with it, but I wanted people to go to their sites and talk to them. So, learn about their art and hopefully help fund their own medicine for money for medicine. That's the one thing I'm a big believer. I don't feel anyone should have to pay for their medicine. It should be someone, government or somebody helping. But once again, that's another big topic. But I did
oh,
want
yeah, and we can
to,
dive into that another time for sure. Because
I
yes,
think we could
absolutely.
talk hours on running because that's, it was a passion too of mine.
And
know,
I'm sorry you don't get to do it, and hopefully you can, with your back,
yeah.
once, you're healing, you can figure out how to walk. I found a love for walking now, and I never thought I would. I always thought
Mhm.
walking, who would waste their time doing that when you can run? But now that I can't run, I really enjoy walking.
Yeah, well, we'll start our own walk club then virtually.
Exactly. But
Everyone's
George,
invited.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a minute and just thank you for your tireless advocacy. Like, you say you've had like 7 strong women on here. I'm like, you could keep up with us because you have this, just this. I mean, I say women like because there's something motherly about us that we have a cause and we're going to figure it out and we're going to investigate it. And you are right up there. And not to slay on any male or anything, but you absolutely are fighting for awareness, and not just as a caregiver, but the love for your mom, it is beyond honorable and heartfelt. So I appreciate you so much for doing what you do. Particularly after losing your mom, a lot of people would need to take a break from it, but you stay in it. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it, and I'll be the one crying instead of my guest. But it means the world. And I have a little message for you and everyone listening. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Keri, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always joke in a way, but say I'm just getting started, even though I haven't, because every time I see your post or something that you share, it could be struggles, it makes me kind of re-energize and realize that this fight's not even close to over and that I have to continue to get out there and keep fighting by your side. So again, I'm so grateful for your time, and everyone please go to Instagram, Keri Shaw underscore, also the YouTube, but most importantly, kind, KINDBOMB.com. When mine arrives, I'll be doing a video to promote it, but I'm so grateful finally for the time that we got together, and I just hope for many more because this, again, conversation just, it can't end now. It can't until the cure is at our doorstep. So again, thank you, Keri, and thanks everyone too for listening. So much more to come. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Please stay tuned, and we send our love, hugs, and also kindness to everybody out there. And remember, say something nice, even if it's your husband, wife, to your son, daughter, no matter what the struggle or the negative thing that might have argued over. My mother and I used to fight on Sundays about where we're going to order food. We had a big family, and like no one could agree. And I don't know if you see, like, imagine 7 people with cell phones and everyone arguing over what kind of food. And now today, I really miss that because we don't have that. So, just keep trying, keep smiling, and keep fighting. And again, we love you all. Thanks again.
Thank you.